Hi, this is Peyton Dunaway and Kobe Campbell, and we were asked to do a presentation on using observation as a method for requirements elicitation.
With the observation, the analyst observes the actual execution of existing processes by the users without direct interference.
When collecting data through observation, we can choose one of three methods. Controlled or structured observation is where the participant knows they're being observed, and the analyst collects data while participants perform predetermined tasks. Naturalistic and participant observation is where the participant may not know they're being observed, and the analyst has less control over the experiments. For the purposes of our class project, we will focus on controlled and structured observation.
There are many different ways to use the observation method. A few of them include form different use case scenarios with an existing technology design that attempts to meet the user's current needs with predetermined tasks to have test users perform. Form a collection of data points that you intend to track based on the test user's experience being observed through those tasks. These could be related to UI, bugs, user intuitiveness, user errors, success rate, user emotional response, user tendencies, etc. Define these data points with shorthand annotation code to annotate your observation recordings with. Find representative users, people like the ones who will end up using your product. Use a camera, mic, or your own mad transcribing skills, and with participant permission, record each test user performing the task defined in your scenarios, or let them show you how they typically go about meeting the goals of those tasks. The important thing is to record the entire experiment and then annotate the events that speak in some way to the data you're tracking. After experiments with all test users have concluded, use the annotation code to analyze the data points you've tracked, and this will help the user to have a better experience with your product.
Coding is a way to annotate and take notes during observation experiments. This allows the analyst to gather data points quickly without missing other behaviors exhibited by the participants. When preparing to gather data, come up with a coding convention that will allow you to take note of important events, responses, actions, and mistakes the user exhibits during the experiment. One way to do this is to have codes for each category of interaction you want to track. Then come up with codes that note where the interaction falls on a scale such as frequency, time spent, intensity, expectation, and so on. An example of this is to mark CNF next to anything in the recording transcript that shows the user could not find something they were looking for or should have seen. To add detail to each occurrence of this interaction, mark things such as BUT or TXT for buttons or text that show the user could not find that item. Or if a user complains an action took too long, mark that event as TTL for took too long. If the user expected it to take a certain time, mark how long the user expected the wait to be. This form of coding is meant to be very customizable to fit the needs of the analyst. To bring all the data together, make sure the categories of your data all correspond to a variable of usability as taught by Brother Helfrich: efficiency, learnability, familiarity, simplicity, mapping, motivation, trust, and visibility. Every piece of data we collect should help address one of these variables of usability, as they represent core needs in the system's design. If it's been a while or you have not yet taken CS 371, visit with Brother Helfrich for more information about these.
Fun fact, observation is one of the more widely used ethnographic techniques.
Since observation is already very structured and controlled by the analyst, it is often appropriate and necessary to combine other elicitation techniques, such as task analysis or interviews, during or after the observation. This allows the analyst to gather any remaining internal responses the user may have towards the system that were not exhibited in their visible behavior.
As a general rule, ethnographic techniques such as observation can be very expensive to perform and require significant skill and effort on the part of the analyst to interpret and understand the actions being performed.
The Hawthorne effect is when users tend to vary their response or behavior when they know they are being watched, recorded, or analyzed. For instance, if a user is nervous about being recorded, design your task experiments to not put too much stress on the user. We want to find out about design problems with the system, not how the user works under pressure.
Some of the strengths of using the observation method is that it's easy to reproduce, it's easy to analyze because data is quantitative, it's quick to conduct with many observations, which means large samples, which means more representation. It's not overly complicated or expensive, and it's better for behavioral data that can only be captured by watching a person perform a task. Some of the weaknesses, however, are the Hawthorne effect, and it requires recording equipment technology to capture every detail of observation because, humans can only notice so much. And depending on the desired sample size, it may require observers, analysts, or longer time to gather the data that is being needed.
We recommend using controlled observation when you need lots of data from many people quickly, when you need behavioral data that can only be captured by watching a user use the system, when you have the means to observe a representative group of participants, and as long as the Hawthorne effect will not invalidate your data.
This has been our presentation on the observation method in elicitation requirements. Thank you.